always forget. Okay.
All right. So these are the two educational modules, and I call them educational modules because when I first started working on this, I called them curriculum, and apparently curriculum makes some people uncomfortable. So makes them nervous. They think it's really fancy. It's not. Educational modules is just what I call them. And so how I had this set up is I wanted to write down the programs that I've done every year consistently, and I wanted to put them in one place because I didn't come up with these, most of them, but I've pulled them from different curriculum sources and I've put them all together to make one program. And so I don't want every single one of you to have to go through and find all these curriculums and all these activities and um, and having to recreate the wheel because I'm a firm believer that that does not need to be done. So let me start with my fourth grade. So my fourth graders do citizenship leadership. We meet once a month. Um, in the module folder that you'll have access to, there's the actual curriculum I'm fixing to show your module. And then I also have all of the attachments that you'll need to do the programs that I've done in the folder as well. This includes an evaluation. You're welcome. If you want to get into the school, some of you did say that you do school enrichment programs and you need to prove to that teacher or that principal kind of the impact of this program. I included an eval summary. So this includes my evaluation results from 2017 to 2019, so 3 years of this program. And it shows you the results that I had as from doing this in the classroom. So if you need an in into to get into the school, that's what that's there for. Also, those of you that are doing wanting to use this in your community clubs, use your normal officer script. Let your officers open and close the meeting as normal. If you're wanting to do it in a school program or a different situation that's not a community club that maybe doesn't have officers, use rotating officers, which is what I do in my class. When I go in at the first of the class period, I pick 3 kids. I rotate them each month so everyone has the opportunity. I have scripts that are right here. I have them highlighted for each officer position. They get up, they open the meeting, they read their highlighted part. We do the pledge. They announce what the minutes were from the last meeting, what today's lesson is, and then they close out the meeting at the end. So that gives all those kids that are in school the chance to be an officer at least once throughout the semester. So let's pull up the curriculum. And the way I had this set up, of course, it's not at the first page. I have it broke down that these are designed to be in a 45-minute-ish period. This one has 8 meetings. You could combine some. I've had to do that before. You can skip over ones that maybe aren't relevant. However many meetings that you need to have if you're in school or in a community club. So the first one is set up to be a welcome to 4-H. And the way I had this set up is what is in bold is what you would say. And then the italicized is either the answer you're looking for or what you would expect your kids to say back. This is great when you're handing this off to a team leader because they don't have to know all the background information. They can read word for word or a volunteer. I know starting out, especially as a young agent, I would be really nervous conducting programs because I didn't know what to say. And so I wanted to set this up where you could just grab this and walk into a program. If you got a last minute phone call, you could pick one of these activities out and be ready to go do it. I always start my first class with just a welcome to 4-H. I do an icebreaker with them, and then we do a lesson. I was going to scroll down. I have a 4-H fun facts worksheet that's in the folder that you can do with them. Meeting 2 is when we do citizenship, and this is pulled from that 4-H Government is Us, I think it's called, curriculum that we got several years back. We talk a lot about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the amendments. I have them do a citizenship test. I will say, warning on this, I did the citizenship test one year, and we have I had several Hispanic children in that class, and 2 of them actually told me that their parents were going through the citizenship process and that their parents were having to take the citizenship test for real. And so that brought up a whole new conversation in the class, which was great, but it did kind of catch me off guard. So be prepared for that to happen depending on the environment that you're in. Meeting 3 is where we do voting and elections. I have a lot of election fun facts in here that the kids always love, so they can pull them out. I do make a rule, and I can't remember if I typed this in here or not. I do make a rule that we don't ask anyone, including myself or our teachers, who they voted for. We talk about how it's important to make your own decision and that you shouldn't base your decision off what someone else is doing. If it's an election year, I do have the kids do a vote in class. And so 4 years ago, when we had the Clinton-Trump election, my kids actually, their votes were almost exactly what the ending vote result was for real. And so that was fun the next time I went back, because we had this meeting like a week or two before the election. And then the next time I went back, they were so amazed that their vote was so close to the real outcome. So that was neat. We do talk mainly about presidential elections. We kind of hit on the Electoral College and popular vote and the difference. If you feel like you want to touch more on county government, so maybe like your county judge, or on state level like the governor, this could easily be adapted to whatever you feel like your kids would get more benefit out of. We also, at the end of that, we do the agree to disagree activity out of the Government Is Us. Like I said, this is directed towards 4th grade. I also do this activity with my teen leaders. It is a really good activity. So basically, if you've never done it before, it gives you some public policy issues and your kids move to the opposite side of the room. If they agree and they think that policy should pass, they go to one side. If they disagree, they go to the other. And we talk about respect, how you don't have to agree with somebody, but you do have to respect their decision. And then I give each side the opportunity to justify their decision, and they learn how to have a civilized debate. And this is, like I said, a really good activity. I pick, when I do this with my 4th graders, I pick public policies like vending machines should be banned from school. It should be a law that anyone under the age of 16 must wear a helmet while riding a bicycle. And for safety purposes, there should be a limit to the number of passengers in a car driven by a teenager. These are relative that they can relate to. When I do this with my teen leaders, if it's a near an election and there's maybe policies that we're going to be on our ballots, I will do that. I will use our ballot issue folder that we have. I've used the YouTube videos that Kristen Higgins sends out to us that are short descriptions of what we're really voting on. I'll make my teen leaders watch that video. We'll go through that policy ballot issue booklet, and then they will debate the real policies, because they, a lot of them are 16 to 18 years old and they're getting close to voting age, and they need to understand how to research real issues. I'm talking really fast. If y'all have questions, unmute and ask them. Lori, if anything pops up in the chat that I can't see, please let me know.
Yep, I'm watching the chat. You're getting lots of this is great, so keep it going.
All right, so I'm going to stop on meeting 4 because communication, this is my absolute favorite activity that I do, probably in almost all of my programs. So we start this meeting with an icebreaker called Walk the Walk, Talk the Talk. Basically, I take them outside. They have like a basketball court on the playground. They pair up, and one kid has to put a blindfold on, and the other kid has to guide them down the basketball court, around the basketball goal, and back to the starting point. They cannot touch each other. All they can use is verbal guidance to get their partner down and back, and then they'll swap, and the other partner gets blindfolded to do the same activity. This is so educational for them. They think they got this, and I have so many that tell me I got this when we start, and then they're the ones that run into the basketball goal at the end. They don't know how to communicate verbally, which, as much as they talk, you would think they do. But this is a really, really fun activity. They learn a lot from it. And so we do ask those debriefing questions at the end of what made this hard. And then my favorite is asking them to raise their hand if they thought they did a good job giving directions. And then tell them to look at their partner and ask their partner if they did a good job giving directions. And all these kids that think they did awesome and their partner's like, no, you did not. And so then we talk about communication. We talk about giving feedback, nonverbal, verbal communication. It's a really good conversation to have with these kids. In fourth grade, I've learned that's when they start doing a lot more group work and teamwork, and they're terrible at it. And their teachers always tell me that this is one of the places that they struggle. They don't know how to work as a team. So then, I don't know if y'all were in Hope session yesterday. Y'all heard me brag about the leadership road trip curriculum from Ohio State, and I pulled this activity from there. I put them in partners again. I try to make them get a different partner than they had outside. And they start off, one partner is seated and the other partner is standing behind them back to back. And can y'all see this picture? All right, hold on.
No, we're seeing your document still.
Okay, let me reshare. All right, here we go. So this is how the partners are, one seated, one standing. They are, first off, they use one-way communication. So my seated partner has a blank sheet of paper in front of them and they cannot talk. They cannot make any noise. The standing partner has a piece of paper that has a design on it. The first one is just 2 triangles in a box that are arranged on that paper somewhere. And the standing partner has to give instructions to the seated partner so that they can recreate that drawing on their paper. But again, the seated partner cannot talk. They cannot ask questions. They can't confirm if they understand. They can't ask the other person to repeat themselves. This is very, very frustrating for them. If you'll notice, my girl that's seated here, her hands are like, what? And that's the most common look that I see. She's like, I don't know what you're telling me. And so once they do this, we then have them show the picture and they see that they're usually not close. Some of them get fairly close. I usually don't have any that are right on. And then I'll have them swap positions. And the second time, they are allowed to use two-way communication. So they're allowed to give feedback. The seated partner is allowed to ask questions. They still can't see each other, but they can talk back and forth. But the second time, I give the standing partner a much more difficult picture. And so they're having to describe like a 3D cube, and like there's a heart inside the cube, and then there's extra designs around the outside. So it's more difficult, but since they can talk back and forth and have that two-way communication, it goes a lot better for them. So that's one that I really enjoy. The kids seem to get a lot out of that. Meeting 5 is how a bill becomes a law. What I love about this is that I try to do this in January, February-ish, and if our legislator is in session, I will pull a bill that is actually going to be discussed or is on the docket, whatever the wording is, and that I think is on a level that the kids can understand. Usually there's one that's related to education. A few years ago, there was one about cell phones not being allowed in the school. Like when the kids got there, their cell phones had to go to the teacher or to a principal, and then they would be able to get them back at the end of the day. I used that bill in class. We went over it. We talked about the process of how it would become a law. And then we talked about reaching out to your representatives, and that's how you make a difference. And so all of the kids write a letter to their representative. I collect them all. I read through them just to be safe, and I will pick around 5, sometimes more, sometimes less, that are really good. And I'll scan them in one document and I scan all the others in a different document so they're separated. And I will send both documents to our representative and I'll say, please take the time to at least read these 5. This other document has all of the letters these kids wrote you, but please take the time to at least read these few. I tell them that we're a 4-H club, that what the kids are learning. And every single time our representatives or senators have sent a letter on the fancy paper to the kids in the classroom so that they know that their representative read their letters and what their response was. And so I have great representatives that have always written back. I'm sure most of yours will too. But that is awesome for the kids to get that response. And I know that in our citizenship our goals as part of that program is to teach them how to interact and how to make a difference in the world. And that's one of the ways that we can show them this is how you make a difference. So that's another one of my favorites of this lesson. I do give them an outline. I usually write this on the board, dear, and then I'll give them their legislator's name. I'm writing you about House bill. They fill in the blank. I either support or do not support this bill. And then I have them list 2 to 3 reasons why. Thank you for your time, sincerely. And then they sign their first name. I tried it one time without giving them a good outline and it didn't go as well. So I felt like this outline gave them the basics to get started, but then they still had the freedom to list their own reasons. Meeting 6, this one hits right on a 4th grade standard that they have to meet, Arkansas state symbols. Included in the document, there is a Shiloh Museum of Ozark History. I've never been there. I don't know where it is, but it's amazing because they have a bingo game. And this class, we use their curriculum to go over all the Arkansas state symbols, and then we play a bingo game, and it helps them to remember. I can say that it really does make a difference that they know their state symbols by the time we get done. Meeting 7, we focus all on leadership and teamwork. We do raccoon circles from the life initiatives. If you've not done the 4-H life training, highly recommend it. I use those activities daily. I pull another activity from the leadership road trip curriculum. And then we do kind of a leadership personality exam, and it separates, it's called You Animal You, and it separates them into raccoons, dogs, owls, and roosters. And we kind of talk about how the golden rule always says do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, but that when it comes to teamwork, you need to treat others the way they want to be treated, not necessarily the way you want to be treated, because we're all a little different. And then the final meeting, I have a Jeopardy game. I have the link for it on here for you to use, and it is set up. I created it for this curriculum. So it reviews if you go to this curriculum, that Jeopardy game reviews what they've learned. And it's a great way to do a kind of observation evaluation before you do the paper evaluation with them on the same day. And I like that it reviews everything before you give them the paper evaluation. And I do have the standards. So again, if you are wanting to use this in a classroom, hand this to the teacher and show that these are the standards that this curriculum will meet. All right, any questions on that one before I hop over to the science one?
I think Billy had a question about the communication. Did you say that you did the communication lesson with your officer teams?
Yes, I do that communication activity with everybody. I do it with my 4th graders, my teen leaders. I do it with pretty much everyone that I think needs it, which is everyone.
Gotcha.
Hey, Sarah, let me, so do you do that in the classroom?
Yes, everything on here I would do in my classroom.
And so you just have like 2 kids do that together?
Are you talking about the back-to-back one?
Yes.
Oh, no, every kid in the classroom does that.
Okay.
I have them all pair up. They just do it in pairs. And so that adds a challenge to it because they have to hear their partner over everybody else's partner talking at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions before I move on to the science one? I know I talk super fast, guys. I'm sorry. You do have to bust in if you need it.
It is being recorded, so if you want to go back and rewatch it, you can rewatch
and you're
it.
going to have links to this. If you get to flipping through it and something doesn't make sense, y'all know how to get a hold of me because sometimes it doesn't transfer from my brain to the keyboard.
We'll get it in. I'll work with Sarah Beth and figure out how we can get it in. Either get it in the sharing ideas or get it linked. We'll work together and get it.
I laugh because I had to sit in my office and talk to myself to type these out, guys, because it's one of those, I've taught it a million times, so I know it, but I don't remember what I say. So my secretaries thought I were crazy because I sat in here and talked to myself so I could figure out what I said. All right, this is the 5th grade that I do. This would be perfect for your community clubs because you could just grab one of these and go as a science experiment, and that could be your club meeting, or your volunteers could, or your teens could, however your county is set up. Very flexible. We do have, this has 6 meetings. The first one is an Oreo cookie experiment. That one's where we determine if double stuffed Oreos are really double stuffed. That focuses on the scientific method. Meeting 2 is crayon rock cycle. 3 is chemical reactions, space, plants and photosynthesis, and then ecosystems and food webs. So Oreo cookie experiment, really easy. Every kid needs 1 regular Oreo, 1 double stuffed Oreo. You need a kitchen scale that weighs in grams. And then I provide you with the experiment worksheet in the folder. They just weigh it as it tells them to on their worksheet. You figure out the amount, the weight of the cream on both, and then you see if it's double or not. But it walks them through it on the sheet step by step of the scientific method so that they learn that process, but learn it in a fun way. The crayon rock cycle, this was the first video I made in the pandemic that I posted to our Lone Oak Facebook page. So if you want to see this video form, it's there. I do this. I've done this at libraries. I've done it in club meetings. I've done it in schools. Kids love this, but it takes them through the rock cycle from sedimentary to metamorphic to igneous rocks. I do have this rock collection from NASCO that I linked here. I bought it with some grant money a few years back, but it has 15 different rocks that are divided into the 3 different types. And so I can pass some of them around for the kids to see. You could probably find several kinds of rocks around you, but I'm in the prairie and we don't have rocks. So buying the rock collection worked really good. But this does have some things, but some supplies, but they're not expensive. The crayons, you can use the broken crayons. Ask your preschool and kindergarten, 1st grade teachers at the end of the year or throughout the year to save any broken crayons in a baggie for you, and you'll pick them up. Broken crayons are perfect for this. The ones that I use came from a restaurant. My dad works for Blackman Auctions, and they auctioned off a restaurant a few years back, and they had all the little 3 packs of crayons for the kids, and they donated them to me to use. So that's what I've been using for years. A little piece of aluminum foil for each kid, plastic knife, the little tea light candles, and a clothespin. Some of my kids use the clothespin, some of them don't, but I do have it for safety, and a lighter. I do lecture them on the plastic knife before I give it to them, that if I see any horseplay with the knife or the candle, that they will not participate in any further 4-H activities with me. We are in the school when I do this, so lighting a candle is kind of a big deal, but we do talk about safety extensively before we do it. Again, I'm not going to go through that in detail. It's all in here, and I have the video posted if y'all want to see it. The chemical reactions, we do the magic bottle, which is the baking soda in the balloon, put it over the top of the 2-liter bottle that has vinegar and water in it. When they shake the baking soda down, the balloon blows up. Great to cover chemical reactions. And then we'll go outside and shoot off film canister rockets. That's always a favorite. And if you have kids that like to do film canister rockets, but you don't really have a curriculum that goes with it, just tie it into chemical reactions. You can do a quick short lesson, but the kids will still get something out of it. Space. So I kind of pulled this one out of thin air. My 5th grade teachers, they sent me their units that they cover, and one of them was space. And so I just did some Googling trying to find a fun activity. I have planet cutouts. Grayson Perkins cut them out for me years ago, and they are to scale. And I provided the scale in the folder. And so like my Mercury and my Pluto, and in my world, Pluto's still a planet, just FYI. The Pluto is really tiny, but then the Jupiter is like this big. And so I'll pass them out to 9 kids. And the first step is they have to line themselves up in planetary order. That's one of their standards for 5th grade science, is knowing the order of the planets. You'd be surprised if they don't at that point. But they'll do that. And then I have a piece of yarn that has a tape that shows to scale the distance of the planets from each other. So they line themselves up, then they distance themselves according to the yarn. And then I have these 2 worksheets, and one of them is how much do you weigh on other planets, and how old would you be on other planets? So on how much do you weigh, we talk about gravity. Again, that's another one of their science standards for 5th grade, is how gravity affects you on different places. So they figure out their weight and their age. And those worksheets have step-by-step on how for you to walk them through it. And most of them can figure it out just by reading the worksheet on their own. But that's all provided. Plants and photosynthesis, y'all know ag's my favorite. I do this activity, the plant part activity I do with my 1st graders all the way to my high schoolers. We just talk about the 4 main parts of a plant: the roots, stem, leaves, and the flower. And then I let them build their own. My high schoolers, I just give them a crap ton of craft supplies and turn them loose and tell them to build their own plant that has all 4 parts. My 1st graders, I walk them through step by step and we all build it the same way. When I do it with 5th grade, it depends on the group. I've had some classes that I can turn them loose, give them 15 minutes, and they'll build their own plant. I've had some of them that you turn them loose and they just look at you with this look that they don't know what they're supposed to do. So those I'll walk through step by step. Completely depends on the group that you have and if you think they can handle it. The plant survival is really fun. This is pulled from Project Learning Tree, I think, or Project Wild. I'm not sure which one. But every kid gets a paper towel. They quickly draw a plant on it, and then I take them to an open area in the classroom, and they put that paper towel down, and they stand on top of it, and they become that plant. Their feet are rooted and cannot move. Then I have these little like 2x2 squares of black, yellow, and blue, and I'll sprinkle them around them. And then I just tell them, when I say go, you're going to pick up as many as you can without moving your feet. And then they'll do that. And then I'll ask, how many of you have at least one blue? How many have at least one yellow? How many have at least one black? The blue represents water, yellow represents sunlight, black represents carbon dioxide. If they don't have at least one of every color, then that means that they didn't survive that growing season. And so then we go into more detail and talk about photosynthesis. I don't tell them what the colors are for until after the 1st round. And then I'll let them do it again. And usually we have more survive the 2nd time. Well, then I'll be like, well, what if we're in a drought? What does that mean? We don't have as much water. So then I'll pull out several of the blues and put them behind me, and we'll do it again with less water, and we'll see what happens. And so you can talk through all these different scenarios and real life scenarios and ask them, you know, what does that mean? What would that mean in real life? And it gets them to thinking. The final one is ecosystems and food webs. I have a quick little worksheet that talks about producers, consumers, and decomposers. And it talks it shows them a food web or food chain and asks them some questions about it to make sure they understand. And then we make their own food web. So I have a picture of this, I believe. Let me go back to my pictures. All right, so here's the food web. And so you'll notice they all have a picture hanging on their chest of a plant or an animal. I did create a file that has, I think, 25 different pictures on it. It's in the folder for you. And I do have a key of what animal is what. So they all get a picture of a plant or an animal. They go around and say what they are. That's mainly to make sure they know what they are. And then we'll talk about food chains, that they always start with a producer, which is a plant. And so a kid with a plant gets the yarn, and they hold onto the string, and they'll toss the yarn to someone that would eat them. And then that person holds onto the string and tosses the yarn to someone that would eat them until you get to the top of that food chain. Once you get to the top of that food chain, we go back to a producer and start again. And so we have this food web. I have this in the curriculum, but I'm going to say it anyways. 2 disclaimers that you need to make before you start this. The first one is that people are, for all intents and purposes, at the top of their food chain. If not, you will have the kid that has people getting eaten by everything in the circle. Second, you have to discuss what bears eat. So for some reason, every child thinks that bears eat people and that that's their main food source. And their main food source is actually berries and nuts and fish. And so we do that disclaimer before we start. This is after, I think, 7-8 years of doing this program. Those are my 2 disclaimers that if I don't mention when we start, we have to have the discussion in the middle of the activity. People are at the top of their food chain. Bears don't eat people. And I do tell them that bears may kill people, but bears do not usually eat people, at least not the black bears that we have in Arkansas. So I know grizzlies probably a whole different story, but for the purpose of this activity, bears don't eat people. All right, so that is a super duper quick rundown of what we do. Here's an example. These are 3 of my boys from several years ago. These 2 on the left were actual 4-Hers outside of the classroom at one point, but this is how they do their officers. They stand up at the front and they read their script. That's that. This is the raccoon circles that we did for leadership with the 4th graders. Here's the magic balloon.
Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh!
This is the blindfold of guiding down, around, and back. This is the crayon rock cycle. He's melting his metamorphic rock into an igneous rock. All right, guys, I'm open for questions. Do y'all have
There are
any
a couple of questions. One of them is, do you do, for the 5th grade, do you do a welcome to 4-H portion with your 5th grade group?
I do not, because I'm in the same school. So these kids have already had me all through 4th grade. So they already know me and they already know what our 4-H program is about. If I was starting with them, I would add a welcome to 4-H. But since this is their 2nd full year with me, and a lot of them had me in 1st grade as well, they know what 4-H is. And by the time they get to 5th grade, I will say I also have an awesome setup, because at Lone Oak, I have them in 4th grade, I have them at 5th grade. And at the end of their 5th grade year, their reward trip is a trip to the 4-H center. And that was set up before I was ever here. I lucked out that way. So those kids get a good 2 full years of 4-H education. And then they wrap that up with a trip to the 4-H center. And so it's always fun for me when they go, because when Casey Marshall was at the 4-H center, Casey and I actually grew up together. His mom was my 2nd grade teacher. But when he found out he had a group from Lone Oak, he would always ask them if they knew me. And that group always did. And so that was fun for me to see that at the end.
Do you do these with the science lessons with just one 5th grade class, or you do it with all of the different science teachers each year? Like, how's that structure look?
Okay, great question. Originally, they used to have 6 teachers and 3 of them taught science. So I would spend one day at that school and I would rotate among those 3 teachers. Now, luckily, they have set it up. They have 5 5th grade teachers and one of them is science. So all the kids rotate through that one teacher in a day. So I stay with that one teacher and I teach with her every time she gets a group. And 4th grade is now set up the same way. So I do the same way with them. And I used to teach the 4th grade group in their social studies teacher because those were the standards I was meeting. But the way they're set up with 5 teachers now, there's no good way for me to reach them all through their social studies teacher because of scheduling. So I actually do that in their science teacher's classroom as well, because she's the one teacher that has all the 4th grade kids within a day.
Do you do the officer stuff with the 5th grade group as well?
I am this year. I did not last year. I don't remember why I got started without doing officers, but it just happened that way. And then this year, my group, of course, they had me in 4th grade. And the first day I showed up and didn't do officers, they were like, excuse me, Miss Sarah Beth, I wanted to be an officer. So we're doing officers with 5th graders now too, which is how I intended it originally. I just, things get whopper jawed sometimes. So yes, I do officers with 4th and 5th grade.
And that's all that's in the chat. So anybody else, feel free to open up and ask questions. We've got about 1 minute left. And I'll put in a plug. I try to work on the curriculum as well. And y'all know we did the project portfolios that we're kind of working on. And so there's lots of things out there, resources. We're going to be putting we've got that sharing ideas folder. And we're going to be putting things in there. So make sure you keep check with that. So if that is all of it, that will be great. We'll make sure that all this information gets put in the folders for you guys, for y'all to be able to.
And y'all know how to reach me if y'all have any questions. Here, a phone call or an email away.
Thanks, Sarah Beth. We appreciate it. All right, everybody, you've got about 15 minutes to kind of stretch your legs, use the bathroom, kind of walk around the building a little bit, and then check the schedule. We've got 3 more breakout sessions, and then we'll do our closing at 11:30. So check it out. Bye, everybody.